Hey, and welcome back again to another edition of Real Intelligence right here on our Tree platform. So glad that you guys are here, and I hope you've been keeping up. I mean, we got quite a few installments on this series as we are going along slowly, simply, learning about the different parts of our brain, which is so very important. I'm going to keep saying it. You know what I'm going to say, and that is the brain is one of the most, I would almost say, the most important part of our bodies. And it's really something that we, in school, we weren't really taught all the integral details of it and on why it's so important. We have computers, we have phones. We're very familiar with how to update them, how to add things, how to delete things, and making sure that it doesn't overheat. We're very familiar with how to take care of our digital devices. But when it comes to our brain, however, that knowledge isn't really free flowing out there. Even though it's out there, a lot of people just don't really think about it, pun intended. And so that's what we're doing here, is wanting to get people back to seeing the value of what's already in here, because the technology world has been seeing it, and basically all the technology that we have is based on how this works. And so it's imperative for us to know and to understand how this works and why it works. And so that's what we're going to do. We've been doing, and we're going to continue to do today. So today we're going to talk about a part of the brain that I make mention. I mentioned quite often here, and but we're now going to get to it. And it's the hippocampus and the amygdala, And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into how that works and all of that, and how we can optimize it. Again, make sure you check out our website, which is sambatree.com, where we got a full line of herbs that we have formulated that will help optimize these different parts of our brain. And I'll tell you, nature has the answer for all of these things. And so anyway, make sure you check that out over on sambatree.com. All right. So anyway, so we're talking about the limbic system. All right. It links the limbic system. What it does, it links emotion with memory. Oh, I love this already. It links emotion with memory. And you're going to see later on how this ties into how social media really takes advantage of this, oftentimes, at our disadvantage. But we're going to hear about it nonetheless. Now, the amygdala is what it does is it holds those emotions, right? And what it does, and then what the hippocampus does, it takes those emotions and it remembers those certain details about those emotions, and it files them so that your brain can easily pull it up for a later reference. And so that's how these two things basically work together. All right. So for our individual for today, we're going to introduce you to Aria. Now, she is a nursing student, and if you have ever run across any nursing students, you know that, wow, they study quite a bit. And so you could only imagine the amount of pressure that someone like Aria is dealing with. Well, anyway, Aria, she is studying and all of that, but she's encountering the pressure. And, one thing about for me, and then I know my daughter too, when it comes to like taking those tests, I'll get through it. The biggest part of me is getting my emotion, like getting myself together, because I get so like just, the emotions take over. I could study the information all day. But man, when it just feels like an absolute, like if you don't do it, this is it. That's what you feel. You know what I mean? And so Aria, she feels kind of the same thing. And so those emotions are kicking up and all of that. But she remembered something that we talked about, the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. That's when you breathe in for 4 seconds. That wasn't 4 seconds. Let me try it again. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 7 seconds. And then breathe out for 8 seconds. I think I did it. Anyway, but anyway, yes, that's basically the breathing exercise that she remembered. And between doing that and doing something called the gratitude replay, that's when you kind of just, sit back and you think real quick. Okay, not real quick, but just set aside and say, okay, what are the things I am grateful for today? And if anything, just think, if you can just think of one, just write it down and just think on that. Give your mind time to kind of think on it, right? Another thought that I had too was, and we've touched on this on a previous installment here, the importance of colors, exposing yourself to different colors. Like we talked about going out, when you go out for these walks and you're just looking for new, interesting colors and all of that, and taking mental notes of those colors. Things like that are very good. I had a thought right before I sat down to record this, is getting one of those, if you go to Home Depot, go into the paint section, and you know how they have like those swatches, those color swatches. Like if you're going to paint a room or something, they have different color swatches. That might be a good thing to get your hands on. The reason why is because as you're kind of going through that, like for me, I don't know what it is. I like going through color swatches. I just love it. I'm not painting anything. I just like going through it. I like looking at the colors. It does something to your brain. It actually relaxes it. When you're looking at these new, unique colors and all of that, allow your brain to kind of explore that color space for a moment. As you're looking through it, it's like, wow, okay, I really like this color. Well, sometimes when I'm driving, with these new Teslas and all of that, you see some of these new colors they're coming out with. I'm like, wow, that is really neat. So colors can really bring a very calming effect and impact on our brains, right? Another thing I do is, when I'm doing my AI artwork stuff, I get to see all these different neat colors that people use in the art gallery that they have, so you can get inspiration. And just seeing it, sometimes I just like just going through and just looking at the different artwork. Seeing those colors again is a way of calming and relaxing you. That's why, a lot of times when you go into art galleries, it's a standard art gallery, right? Just on a normal day. I'm not talking about when they have jazz night or hip hop night. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about when you're just walking through it, and you know how when people are just looking at the different pieces of artwork, there's not like, there's none of that, right? People tend to be very calm and very quiet. Well, part of that is because of the very unique colors that they use. Right. So something to keep in mind, that colors can really help us when it comes to calming. Well, anyway, Aria did that. She incorporated all that stuff. And guess what? She began to start feeling a lot calmer. Right. So there's something to keep in mind, something to think about, the next time you feel yourself in a high stressful moment like Aria, try some of these things, the breathing exercises. Thinking about that one thing that you're grateful for today. You know what I mean? And then also bring some little color in your life. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. All right, so now we are at our anatomy snapshot. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I have it on the screen here. And let's take a closer look at this part of the brain, the limbic system. Okay, so we have the amygdala, as we've been talking about. That's the threat detector and emotion tagger. It, like fear, alert, valiance. Okay. The hippocampus. Okay. The next part, memory indexer, files people, places, and sequences. Okay. The next part, we have the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. That's the focus plus error monitoring, helps shift attention. All right. The next part is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, not the hippocampus, the hypothalamus. All right. Starts body response, heart rate, and hormones. Okay. I said the hypothalamus or hypothalamus. It depends on, I guess, who you're talking to. So yeah, so if that goes off, it's like haywire. Have you seen that movie? What was it? Osmosis Jones. when I see some of these terminologies, it reminds me of that cartoon. It's Osmosis Jones. It's with Chris Rock. He does the voice in there, and there's some other people in there. But anyway, Bill Murray, he's in there too. Look it up. It's really neat movie, and they cover some of this. So yeah, so that if the hypothalamus, if that goes off, it throws off things like your body temperature, your heart rate starts going up, the whole nine. So yeah, so that's a very important piece. And then finally, we got the PFC, or the prefrontal cortex, which is the limbic bridge. The top-down calming labels feelings with words. Okay, so there you go. So that's the whole piece right there. For this anatomy snapshot. Let's move on. All right, so let's look at how this all works, how that all works together. All right, so your amygdala tags experiences as urgent or safe. The hippocampus then converts the experience into a retrievable packages, right? Who, what, where, when, all right? Strong emotion without detail. Now, this is a very important point that we're going to layer this down. We're going to get into that one, okay? Now, let me read that again for you. The hippocampus then converts experience into retrievable packages, who, what, when, where. Strong emotion without detail. Usually the memories become fuzzy, okay? So just hold your finger there. We're going to continue on, and we're going to come back to that, okay? All right, so the next thing is the chronic stress hormones can shrink hippocampal shelf space and keep the amygdala loud. Brief rhythmic breathing and emotion labeling. I feel anxious, not in danger. Quite quiet the alarm so the PFC can steer. So when things are working right, that's what's supposed to happen there. Okay. And then finally, we have bodies and environments for melanated bodies. Like, let's say if you live out in an environment like where I live, which tends to be on the hot side and very, very dry. It's important, it's imperative for us to, in order to keep that part of our brain kind of functioning like it's supposed to, making sure that we are getting plenty of good sleep. I mean, this is across the board, but especially in environments like this where it's hot, all right? And you want to make sure you're not overly stressing your body. You know, that's why it's important to stay cool as much as you can. And then making sure that you're, hydrating, getting those electrolytes in you, like, not, not Gatorade. Okay. But going to things like coconut water. I love coconut water. That's a great source. And it's also a good source for magnesium. Magnesium is another thing that you need as well, making sure that you have that. So if you're in a warmer climate, it's very important for you to make sure that you're replenishing your bodies with that, because that helps your hippocampus, however you want to pronounce it. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so now, you remember I said hold your thumb there? Okay, so let's turn the page back and let's go back to that part there where I'm talking about fuzzy memories. Okay, like I said, again, this is a very important point to bring out, because let's look at social media, for example. Now, when you look at social media, you will see a whole host of things, as we already know, right? You'll see a lot of things that are, I saw this one clip. In fact, if I still have it, I will include it right here. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but check this out.
I'm crying because I'm frustrated. And I'm just going to make this video to let out all of the anger and frustration that all the Black women feel, because I'm tired of it. Leave me alone! Leave us alone! That's it!
Oh my gosh. Okay, you heard that, right? I mean, this girl's going out of control, okay? But if you were to go through the comments, you would see so many people actually resonated with her frequency, okay? And all you heard was this woman who is complaining. What were the main things that we got out of that clip? She is in this case, she's a Black woman, and she's frustrated. That is all that a lot of people's brains will capture, and that's it. You are basically, what's happening is your amygdala is only tying in to just a tiny bits of parts there that you can quickly relate to. And then that's it. Everything else you ain't even thinking. You're not even processing. Why is is this a situation that she created on her own? Is this, nobody really knows the full backstory when you see people posting like that, right? So again, what happens is you get into this, what they call doom scrolling, where as you're constantly scrolling to the next one, scrolling to the next one, scrolling to the next one. And as you continue to scroll, you'll find yourself resonating with people like that, who are also very frustrated. They're angry, they're mad or whatever, or any kind of, usually it skews to that when we're dealing with social media. Happiness isn't something that really trends on social media these days. I don't even think it did at all, but most of the time it's, it's a lot of sarcasm and a lot of people that are angry. Those are the things that unfortunately get a lot of plays and clicks and pass-alongs, right? And so what happens is your amygdala gets addicted to the dopamine. Remember that? Dopamine. Your brain is actually like, okay, I like this. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And your brain, your body is creating this dopamine where you're actually addicted to that kind of stuff. So think of what you see, like when you see people like a drug addict that's addicted to their drugs, and you may ask yourself, well, dang, why are you smoking this stuff? you keep doing it again and again. You smell like doo-doo, and you ain't, your hair ain't combed and all this other stuff. You're living out there. Why you keep taking this stuff over and over again? What's the drug deal? What's the drug addict going to say? Man, it's just the feeling you get, man. It's just the feeling, man. When you get that feeling, that rush is just like, oh, I just got to keep doing it over and over again. Well, okay, so that's understandable when you're looking at someone who's a drug addict or somebody that's out in the street. But we also got to apply that to people who are addicted to their own dopamine, especially on things on social media. And it's like, man, why is it that you always are leaning towards these things where people are voicing how angry and bitter and all these bad emotions? Why do you keep gravitating towards this? Well, it's your brain. Your brain likes the dopamine and the dopamine that you produce. So as long as you're addicted to it, you're going to keep going to it over and over again. Yeah, that's right. I understand what you're saying. Yep, that's right. I agree with you. Yep, that's right. People always got a whole lot to say when it's something bad or negative. But try to post some things that are positive on social media. And I want you to look through the comments and see how and compare the likes on some positive stuff versus things that are very negative. I mean, it speaks for itself. You understand? And so what happens is your brain gets imprinted. So a lot of these people that you see that are on social media, they're actually addicted to that stuff. But what's the key? You don't remember any of the details. This is where this gets very bad, because you want to have a brain that remembers details. That is so key. Your brain is designed to remember details. Your emotions are good, but you also got to know the details. How many people have we seen out here that just flip on emotion, but then when you calm them down, you start asking them for details, they can't tell you anything. I don't know. I just felt it. I just felt disrespected. I just felt this certain way. And I don't know. I just lost it after that. No, you're not supposed to lose it after you encounter some kind of emotional thing. You're supposed to have control. That should never come out of your mouth that you lost it. Because the equipment that you have been given is designed for you to never lose it. We say, you notice, we say these things out of our mouths so often, we don't take the time to think about it. Man, I just lost it. No, you're not supposed to lose it. This is where your prefrontal cortex comes into play, right? Where it takes those emotions and it says, okay, I hear what you're saying. All right, now let's sit down. Let's sit down for a second. Let's go through this. Let's talk about this for a second. That's where your prefrontal cortex comes into play. And if you're not doing things like those breathing exercises, focusing on calm things and all of that, what literally happens is that your amygdala takes control, while your prefrontal cortex, even though it's there, it's kind of like, okay, well, it gives a hand wave and say, you got it, amygdala. And that's what you see. So many people, that's what's happening, unfortunately. Okay. So you never want to be in that condition. So if you find yourself on social media and you're finding yourself gravitating towards nothing but negative things, you need to step away and you need to reset. Okay. I know it's hard because, a lot of these things, when you're going through your For You page, it just shows up. But, really make the effort to kind of hit the pause button on that. Okay. Because when you consume that, too much of that, you'll find yourself forgetting details on very important things. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Now we're going to get to our word bank. All right. So let's go through some of the terms that we covered today. All right. So amygdala, we've been talking about that. That's the brain's alarm and emotional tagger. Then we got the hippocampus. All right. And that's your memory library or the indexer. The next thing is HPA axis. All right. That's stress hormone pathway. This brain adrenal. All right. So just remember that. All right. So the next thing is LTP, which is long-term potentiation. All right. That's the synapse strengthening for memory. Remember we talked about synapse? You may need to go back. We talked about synapse. Okay. And emotional labeling. All right. And that is naming feelings to calm the alarm. All right. There you go. That is our word bank. Let's move to the next section. Okay. So now we are at herbs, foods, and houseplant spotlight. Okay. Yes, that's right. Houseplants play a very critical role as well in our brain development. All right. So anyway, so let's get to herbs. Now, these are things. Yes, I'm going to have to plug it. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is something we do carry over at sambatree.com. Ding. Anyway, it's an adaptogen used for stress balance, may lower perceived anxiety and support sleep. Ashwagandha. You want to check that out. Okay. Actually, this would be a good time. I want to plug this. This is just for y'all. Don't tell anybody else. But we are developing a herbal blend. It's going to be our fall herbal blend. It's going to be a limited offering that we're going to offer to you guys. And I'm designing it. I'm putting it together right now. I got to taste test it and all of that, make sure it's legit and all that. But I'll let you know, okay? And it's going to have things like ashwagandha in there, okay? So I'll let you know. Stay tuned, all right? Make sure you're following us over on our TikTok page, Instagram, and everywhere else, okay? And make sure you're on our email list because we'll make the announcement very soon, okay? Then we got cacao nibs. That's another thing that we have. Cacao nibs, flavonoids, that boost cerebral blood flow and support hippocampal plasticity. Remember we talked about plasticity? How your brain is basically how it constantly is changing shape, right? And how stress can have an impact on that. Remember I talked about that? Yeah. So cacao nibs, it helps assist with that whole process. To get that blood flow going in your brain. All right. Very important, especially when you first wake up in the morning. So cacao nibs are very good for that. All right. And, and so there you go. And so I will actually put a recipe in the description below so you can check it out. Maybe you can make something. All right. So anyway, let's move on. Now for the house plant, there is a house plant called the peace lily. I'll put a picture right here on the screen for you. All right. Now, just like all the other plants, it's very good for relief, especially if you are in a dry space, to add moisture and you want to add a bit of moisture into your environment. Remember, we said, especially for us heavily melanated people, moisture is very important to have in our airspace. Okay. And these different house plants will help with that. So this one, the peace lily, is another one we can add to our collection that is very good with that. Okay, so make sure you take a look out for the peace lily. Okay, so for the next section here, we're going to look at this is our move and live challenge. All right, let's look at that. All right, so remember, we talked about this earlier, the 4-7-8 primer. Make sure you're incorporating that somehow. When you're feeling that stress starting to build up, make sure you incorporate that 4-7-8 breathing primer. Okay, make sure you're doing that. You can do it before sleeping, when you wake up in the morning, or anytime when you feel stressful. All right, and then the gratitude replay, again, that's what we talked about earlier. In your mind, you want to relive one good moment. All right, think about that one good moment. I don't know what it is, but California, when we were living out in California some years ago, I guess I replay that all the time because I absolutely loved living in Southern California. I loved it. I love going to the beach. There is a restaurant there in Newport Beach. Oh my goodness, it's a Mexican restaurant. They had like a what you call a rotisserie. They would make Mexican style rotisserie chicken. Oh my God, that they was good. Oh, they would do the chicken and they would have roasted vegetables and the rice. Oh my goodness. And then I would take it, they would put it in like a aluminum tray. Yeah, I know, aluminum, whatever, right? They would take that aluminum tray and put it in there with the little lid on it. And man, I would go, it's Newport Beach. So the beach was like right there, and sit on that beach. We already had our beach blanket in the car, and just sit and eat that food. My. Johnny Gill, he was I gave him the lyrics. I gave Johnny Gill the lyrics. How about that? That song, My. I gave it to him because when I would sit there, that was just it. And I absolutely love reliving that moment. Or it may be something more recent, think about positive things, relive those things. Okay. All right. Rhythmic walk. Or rhythm walk, a relaxed pace. I try to do this every other day, but this part I don't do. And they said, while softly humming. I never did that. And they said it actually stimulates the vagal tone. And especially do that during, your morning, especially preferably during the morning. If, you can only get out in the afternoon or evening, so be it, as long as you get out. And then, of course, make sure you incorporate the peace lily somewhere near where you are around when you're doing your work every day. And yeah, make sure you're doing those things. Okay. All right. So finally, let's get to the last section of our little class today. And that is quick quiz. Okay, so here we go. You can look back in this class. You can hit the rewind button and all that. That's okay, because the key is to make sure that you learn it and you're applying it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the first question here. So number one, which limbic structure or indexes memory for later retrieval? Let me read that again. Which limbic structure indexes memories for later retrieval? Number two, true or false? Naming a feeling can reduce amygdala activation. Naming a feeling can reduce amygdala activation. I will actually give you the answer to that. And yes, you do need to name it. You do need to, when you are going through, when you're replaying some of these emotions, when we talked about like on social media, for example, it's good to write it down. What do you feel like right now? Okay, I just was on social media for 5-10 minutes. I feel like this. I feel like that. Writing it down is very good to do that. Okay. And what that does, it helps put it in better perspective for your rest of your brain to process that which it just saw. You understand? So writing it down or saying it out of your mouth. This is how I feel right now. I ain't talking about screaming and hollering like that girl did, but I'm talking about just really processing these things and writing it down, naming it is a very good practice to do. So I just gave you the answer to that. All right, let's go to number three. The hippocampus or the hypothalamus, depending on who you talk to, mainly controls A, vision, B, hormone and autonomic autonomic, sorry, automatic, wow, autonomic responses, or C, balance. All right. Name the hypothalamus mainly controls A, vision, B, hormone and autonomic responses, or C, balance. Number 4, what 2 ingredients in today's drink support stress, balance, and hippocampal blood flow? Let's read that again. What 2 ingredients in today's drink supports stress, balance, and hippocampal blood flow? And then finally, why add a peace lily to your workplace? Why add it? Why add a peace lily to your workplace? All right. And before you finish this video, I want you to write down how this video actually feels. What are you feeling right now? Write that down, because I want you to get into practice and doing that. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. That's all we have. I told you these classes are very short, to the point, and highlighting the main points as we are making our way through all the various parts of this wonderful brain of ours, this real intelligence, because out there we use artificial intelligence, but here we have real intelligence, and that is who you are, and that is what you have. And we're gonna make sure that we're optimizing our real intelligence. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Listen, you take care. Make sure you share this with somebody, and let's get our real intelligence back up and running for real. Okay, take care, and I'll see you again soon.